So we can just look here inside one of the Italian restaurants. You can see here some of the, it's in Italian, but the concept for the Expo in terms of thinking about sustainable materials, biodiversity, and preserving, the ecology. And you're also going to see throughout the Expo that they have lots of eco-friendly, recyclable stuff. There are areas to fill your bottle of water with and so forth. So, of course, the sustainability theme is really key for this Expo, and most would say is key for the future of the planet.
Okay, right now I'm showing you some video I shot towards the backside of a number of the pavilions as we approach Italy. You can see here a retention pond, and one of the things that's curious that most people don't recognize about Expo 2015 in Milan is the fact that so much emphasis was placed on creating green areas, areas that would help in terms of the sustainability of the Expo and lessen its environmental impact. Curiously enough, you see here in one of the initial architectural designs for the Expo in Milan, they had planned canals, and these could have been quite interesting. You could see people would take these boat rides. Essentially, it was scrapped because of the expense. One of the criticisms of the Expo in Milan was the fact that the transportation wasn't very convenient. They did have a bus line on the exterior that took you around, but it was, I think, challenging. I never took it. I found that it was just easier to walk, but some of the distances were certainly extreme, and I could only imagine for some people less able, it was a challenge. Again, as you see here walking around, and we just passed the children's area, which I didn't get to focus on so much, but which had some interesting food theming. You can see just how unique and interesting the Expo site is, and I think this would be a surprise to many people who assume that the only signs we see at the Expo are those of the future technology and culture. Nature, clearly, in these and many other green senses, is incorporated within the field or the site plan of the Expo in Milan.
And we see another example here of nature. This is called Biodiversity Park, and one of the things you're going to see throughout the Expo is that they've labeled a lot of the species. There is a, let's see here, indication of such on this plaque. Sorry, I don't speak Italian to translate. But again, a number of really impressive spaces here at the World Expo in terms of incorporating nature within the World's Fair, which is of course known for culture, technology, and things of that nature.
And one of the things that was inspiring for me at the Expo was how many pavilions incorporated green landscape architecture as a part of their design. So many pavilions did this. Certainly Germany did. France had a very dramatic entranceway through a field, as did a number of other pavilions. So it was another sign, I think, of focusing on nature and aspects of conservation at the Expo.
So here I'm inside of one of many areas that presents a variety of thematics of the fair. In terms of this one here, they're talking about slash and burn agriculture, as you can see. Kind of going through all the processes of it. Here it is talking about domestication of plants going back 13,000 years.
Moving on from that exhibit, I'm noting a sign here, and hopefully you can catch some of this, maybe do a pause in the video, but basically it's talking about the efforts focused on water conservation here at the Expo. There's a lot more that I didn't cover in this video, and if you're very curious and if you study things like landscape architecture and design and architecture with environmental consciousness in mind, you may wish to do some Googling and more reading about the Expo and some of the unique approaches. This is one of many, and this you may recognize is the exterior of the Italian pavilion. And as I mentioned in that video that focused on the massive pavilion, one of the things that was interesting about the structure is that it uses a special type of concrete that will actually absorb some of the smog from the atmosphere and thus reduce some of the carbon footprint that is going to be produced, unfortunately, during the 6 months or so in which the Expo happens in Milan. And I feel for some critics, probably they'll say this is not enough. more was needed. But you know, this is a theme all over the world. If you go to Las Vegas, City Center is an example of a very large project, one of the largest in history, one that also uses LEED and green technologies in terms of trying to reduce its impact. So I think politically we will continue to debate issues about the Expo, its environmental impact, and many other concepts or concerns that certainly relate to not just the World Expo tradition, but aspects of consumer society, thematic architecture, and particularly any projects like these that do have a notable impact on the environment. So certainly some food for thought in terms of the future as we think about future expos and other examples of consumer space.
Okay, and here we're walking up the Mediterranean Hill. This is one of many green spaces that you will find, maybe surprisingly, here at the World Expo 2015 in Milan. And, you know, in keeping with their themes of sustainability and thinking about pressing environmental crises and poverty and starvation and other associated issues, you know, I think it's really important to see this focus here on having nature represented. In a site of so much culture, you might be surprised to see this, but it certainly does fit with the organizers' emphasis on these important and pressing themes of the contemporary.
I hope you enjoyed this video feature today here at the World Expo in Milan in 2015, focusing on environmental issues and green areas and some other aspects of conservation that you'll note surprisingly at the World Expo. Please come back for additional video features of the Immersive Worlds Handbook.